Hi, my name is Grant Henry, and you're watching Rise Magic. Quickly, I did just want to pop in and say thank you guys for 30,000 subscribers. This is the first video on the main channel that I've been in since we've hit that milestone, and it's just incredible to me. So thank you guys so much from the bottom of our hearts. If you haven't checked, we are doing a giveaway to celebrate this, so the video will be linked in the end card that's going to be up here. So go check that out and go hashtag 30K giveaway. But yeah, let's get on with the video. Thank you. Now today, we are going to talk to you guys about how to turn over 2 cards, but make it look like 1. I don't know why I'd want to do that. Who knows? But we're going to go into my top 5 ways to improve and get better at doing that for whatever reason you might want to. Now the first, and what I think might be the most important thing to do, is take a deck of cards and just practice turning over 1 card as you normally would. And just watch and study how you would do that a few times. Now once you've done that, you're going to want to mimic however you want to turn over 2 cards, or perform as some people might call it double lift, exactly the same way as you turn over 1 card. Now the reason why you're going to want to do this is because you don't want your double lift to draw any attention to the fact that you're doing a double lift. When you're performing and you turn over 1 card, if you turn over 1 card just normally like this, but when you go and do a double lift, you go and do something fancy like this, people are going to notice the differences and say like, hey, why is he turning over cards like this in this situation, but not in this situation? It's going to trigger something subconsciously in their head. So every single time you do a double lift, a normal card turnover, you're going to want them to look exactly the same. If you really do want to learn some type of fancy double lift, like David Blaine's double lift where you turn it over like that, that's fine, but make sure that every single time you're turning over 1 card, you're turning over that card the same exact way. Take the time, study how you naturally turn over 1 card, and then design your double lift to look exactly like that. Tip number 2, improve your crowd control. You can have the worst double lift in the world. You can go and pick up the cards like this, square them up, and get it ready, and just show them the card without doing anything fancy in front of them. If you have good crowd control, no one should notice. So if you have a whole bunch of preset pattern that you know you want to go through and you're being really rigid with it, try to stray away from that. You want the conversation to be free-flowing and natural so that you have room to improvise and stuff like that. Now this doesn't mean get rid of patter. Patter can have a great way to frame the trick, but leave room in your patter for just normal conversation. So if I'm talking with someone like, yo, I love your shirt. Is that Maverick merch? That stuff is sick. But while you're making conversation with the person, you can just by your side in a few different ways, either just get a break ready for a double lift, and depending on what type of trick you're doing, it will vary, but think of how you prep that double lift while you're talking with your crowd and just being natural. Now tip number 3 comes directly from tip number 2, setting up your double lift while you're talking with people. You shouldn't be doing all your stuff for your double lift right in front of the spectators. You shouldn't be in front of your spectators. Bring up your deck of cards, do a pinky count in front of them, and do the double lift right then and there. If you're good enough, you can get away with it, but it really is not ideal. So while you're talking with them or doing anything else, even if you're just holding out a card, showing them what their card is, with your other hand, you want to get good enough setting up your double lift that you can grab a break, push off 2 cards, 3 cards, 4 cards, whatever your little heart desires, and get that ready to go while whatever's going on. Now there are a few different ways to set it up, and I'm going to go over my 3 favorite ways right now as a little bonus, but my first is just to push off some cards, just like so, and then use your middle finger or your ring finger to push up on the second cards, and then use your middle finger to bring in those cards and catch a break underneath the second card. That's one of my favorite ways. I use it all the time. It's so easy to do while just holding your hand down to your side while talking with people. But another way you can do it is one of my personal favorites, is taking your thumb and your first finger and holding down on this top left corner with your thumb, and then using your first finger to push inwards on this corner. Now, what that is going to be doing is pushing this into this fleshy part of your thumb and expanding the side of the deck, which will make it really easy just to go and with your pinky grab two cards right there. Now, that's a super simple way to do it. Really, depending on how I'm feeling the day, I'll interchange this with the first one, but I enjoy it a lot. Now, the third way you can do it, it's very simple. You can just, as you're holding the card, riffle the deck and just stop at 2 fingers and catch a break. Super simple. People will think you're just fidgeting with the deck, and it works. As long as you have good crowd control, it doesn't really matter how you set it up, as long as you set it up before going into your double lift. Tip number 4 is for those of you who are still struggling with your double lift, even after doing all these things before. Now, if your crowd control isn't great and you're still practicing it, but you don't want to mess up in front of people, this trick is for you. So it really is just picking a deck of cards that is going to help you. Now, what I mean by that is a deck of cards that doesn't have really thin borders or dirty edges. A lot of times what's going to expose your double lift is the contrast between the 2 different cards. Now, if you have a new deck of cards where the edges aren't dirty, there isn't gonna be much contrast between the 2 cards if there's a little bit of a break. But you can see with these older deck of Daniel Madison players, the edges are a little bit yellowed from use, and so there will be more contrast between the edge of this card and then the card below. But if they're brand new, you wouldn't really have to worry about it all too much. And the reason why I brought this deck of cards here is because the border is kind of faded and there isn't much of a border there. So I can have this much of a break, and if they were brand new, there wouldn't be much of a deviation in color between the edge of this card and the card below it. Now, if you have a card with really thin borders and high contrast from like white borders to a black design, and you make a little bit of a goof, it'll be easier for the spectator to spot it because the deviation between the edge of the card and the next card is really high. So using a borderless deck of cards such as B's, as well as using brand new cards where the edges are clean and crisp, are gonna help you out a whole lot. Tip number 5, don't overprove. And what I mean by that is don't go trying to wave around 2 cards, spin them, twirl them, do whatever, throw them in the air and have them stick together to try to subconsciously prove or whatever that there's only 1 card there when there's 2. Don't do that. If you're performing right and you're performing for the right group of people and you're not just performing for magicians, there's no need for that. No one's gonna suspect that there's 2 cards. Everyone's just gonna automatically assume that there's 1 card because that's what it looks like you're doing. No one's gonna think, he might have 2 cards. Going and trying to prove that there aren't 2 cards when no one's thinking that there are 2 cards is just gonna bring attention like, why is this guy trying to prove that there aren't 2 cards? Maybe there are 2 cards, if that makes sense. This is just a little bonus tip. Double lifts are more effective by age range. If you are doing a double lift perfectly, no one will be able to catch you. But one thing that I have noticed, adults are much more susceptible to this than children are, because adults already have the preconceived notion of how a deck of cards is supposed to work. You turn over a card and make that motion, because they've seen that done so many different times by so many different people playing poker, card games, Uno, Go Fish, anything else. They're just gonna assume that it's 1 card. But a child doesn't have that preconceived notion, so they're far more likely to notice your mistakes than an adult will. So if you're struggling with your double lift, maybe don't pull it out at a kid's birthday party. Do the classic back palm behind the ear. Look, you have a car in your ear, you dirty, filthy child. But that's all I have for you guys here today. Hopefully you guys learned something. I would love to know if you did. If you think I missed anything, or if you have any double lift tricks that you want to leave for anyone down in the comments, feel free to do so. This is a community and we're all trying to help each other out here. If you are new here, please feel free to subscribe. It helps us out a whole lot and helps us continue to grow and make these quality tips and tricks videos for you guys. But until next time, this is Grant Henry, and I'll see you in a video. Peace.